available through WebMQS in the Shared Resources section. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm pleased to introduce Alec Marfisi, Business Advisor from the Midtown Manhattan SBDC. Welcome, Alec.
Thank you, Kathy. Good morning, everyone. So my presentation today is going to be on technology tools for entrepreneurs. Specifically, this is going to be tools that you as a business advisor can use in the course of your meeting to just give a few options to the entrepreneurs you're working with so they can improve their websites and manage their presence online as well as expand their business. So takeaways for today will be, again, an array of tools for the advisor to recommend for their needs, facilitating advising the clients understand their web presence, because we find a few entrepreneurs are looking to get into expanding their business online, particularly ones that have a retail footprint or a manufacturing footprint. They'd like to see what opportunities are available to expand their business online, and also analyzing the viability of their online marketing and sales strategies. So as a business advisor to someone who is looking to get online, it's important for us to be wary of not giving them advice that is something they're not going to be able to take away with them. They're going to have to come back and ask for us for assistance again with. So really it's going to be important to give them something that they can learn and then use on their own, as opposed to saying, hey, can you build this for us? Can you help us do this type of analysis again? Because you want to build kind of like an independence, a sense of independence amongst the entrepreneurs. So you want to steer clear of helping them craft their advertisements, their online ads, actually doing programming web development for them, and giving them tools that they can't access on their own. It's important to try to recommend tools for them that they can use at either low cost or something that they can use without a degree, basically. So first off, going into websites, I'm going to recommend a few content management systems that business owners and businesses that are looking to have a website can use. In brief, a content management system is a set of programs that run on the website or run on the server of the website that allow you to make changes to, add content to the website, and remove content from the website without having to specifically write HTML, the code for websites. So content management systems have really made it a lot easier for many more people who previously couldn't build websites to now make their own. Intrinsic to using a content management system is the fact that it fundamentally limits the customization of the site. Really, if you're using a content management system, there's just so many commands that have been built in by the designers of that CMS that can make changes to the site as opposed to building it yourself. But this is changing with the advent of many plugins for popular CMSs and many themes, which I'll go into in a few minutes. And most importantly, what the CMS does is it reduces the site owner's dependence on developers and programmers. So previously, your options were to either have a programmer or developer in-house, which had a high cost, or every time you wanted to make a change to the site, go out to a developer, go out to a programmer to make that change for you. And that's very cumbersome. And especially today, with sites that have continuously updating content, that's almost infeasible if you plan to go outside of your premises to get those changes made. So first, I'm going to look at Drupal. Drupal is on the LAMP architecture. So LAMP architecture means Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. To suffice, what that means in layman's terms is it's one of the most common open source frameworks for running a website. Most specifically, PHP is the language that makes things change on the site itself. Drupal, as opposed to other CMSs, has a lower level of control, meaning you have more access to some of the core processing functions of the server itself, as opposed to the other CMSs I'm going to mention. And thus you can do more unique custom changes to that architecture within Drupal. The design of the actual backend, which you can see here, is less intuitive than some of the other ones I'm mentioning. It has a repository for themes. So themes are changes to the appearance and some of unique functionalities that you can find outside of Drupal that you can apply to Drupal. It has a repository for themes, and they're relatively widespread across the web, but that repository is smaller than some of the other ones I'm going to mention. WordPress is the gold standard in CMSs. There are very many sites right now that run on WordPress, and also there's a very big repository that I'm going to show you in a second for themes and plugins for WordPress. What do people like most about it? WordPress has a user interface that's very easy to use. If you look to the right here, the dashboard shows you kind of snapshots of all the pages, posts, and changes to the site that have been made recently. And when you actually go to make a change to one of your pages, it's basically just entering plain text into a text editor. And it's what you see is what you get. So you can make a change within this text editor and see how it will actually look on your site, as opposed to some other CMSs, or alternatively coding the website yourself, where you don't really see it until the end when the site's actually up and running, or that page is up and running. I want to show you ThemeForest. ThemeForest is one of the biggest marketplaces for WordPress themes. They also have a myriad of other repositories and libraries of tools that you can use for photos, vector art, audio samples, videos, and bits of code that you can use. But ThemeForest itself has templates that you can buy. Most of them are under $100. Very many of them are under $20. And the breadth of templates that they have really meets most needs. Now again, if there's something that you find and you really want this custom function or appearance built into your WordPress site, you can get one of these themes and then maybe have a developer make the change to it, which would be less expensive than building something from scratch. So just as an example, we'll look at this one, Media Center. Relatively popular theme that's available on this website, had about 51 sales. Costs $58 for the regular license. I can actually do a preview of what it would look like in deployment. Whenever this loads. So this is basically the theme. It's built onto WordPress itself. So once you download it, within your setup on your server, you can upload this theme within the WordPress dashboard, and the content that you add to the site will automatically be basically inputted into this style and into this structure of the page. So again, ThemeForest is one good example of a repository. WordPress itself has a repository of themes and plugins that you can use. But ThemeForest seems to have some of the higher quality ones. And of course, you pay a premium for them. But I think in the long run, paying, say, $50 versus having someone build a website for you from scratch, all other things being equal, it's much more convenient to buy something that's ready-made and is widely reviewed and has many bug fixes listed online. In terms of managing social media platforms, there have been more and more social media platforms that have come into the mainstay. And what's happening is audience is diffusing away from just using Facebook, which, say, 3 to 5 years ago would have been the norm. So managing that can become complicated, especially for companies that have multiple social media accounts. So one platform that we use here to manage our social media content, and it's pretty easy for business owners to use once they get it up and running, is Hootsuite. So the advantage of Hootsuite is it synchronizes your social media platforms. With Hootsuite, you can write a single post or upload a single image and have that propagated to all of the social media platforms that that business has. So it might have a Twitter account, might have a Facebook page, might have an Instagram account, might have Flickr, a couple other social media platforms. You can schedule the content. So say you build this post today and you want it to show up on each of those social media accounts tomorrow at 9:05 a.m. You can do that. And of course, there's analytics built into this that show how effective each of your posts were. Just an example of the analytics page for Hootsuite. So typical outputs of that would be number of people that click through, where they're located, languages of the people who visit that particular link, where they saw that link, so which platform it came from. E-commerce. So again, e-commerce mostly due to CMSs and also due to the simplification of the process to accept online payments, e-commerce has become much easier for entrepreneurs. So late 90s, building an e-commerce website may have cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, whereas now it can be done very well for under $10,000 and reasonably well for under $5,000. So some tools to recommend to your entrepreneurs, of course the list is much larger, but we'll go over these, Magento, Big Cartel, and Shopify. And there are a few more that exist, again, as plugins to WordPress. So Magento is free and open source. They have a hosted version of Magento, but the free and open source version is free. A large pool of developers available and a high degree of customization. So what people recommend and what people like about Magento is the fact that you can have a developer who's versed in writing code within the Magento platform and build you something that's partially custom without having to pay the price of having them build a fully custom website. Squarespace has become highly popular right now. Squarespace, what people like the most about it is it's almost hands-free in the sense that you don't need to use a developer to build a Squarespace website. You can do it yourself. The user interface is the most intuitive out of the ones that I'm mentioning here. And the degree of customization is quite decent on Squarespace. They're doing a large advertising campaign, and they have a relatively low cost to operate your e-commerce website hosted on their platform. So for online advertising, AdWords, which many people know and kind of the default that business owners go to when they say, I want to advertise online, Facebook ads, and then I'm going to go into AdWords for video, which is turning out to be a very useful online advertising tool. So a few key terms for online advertising. Online advertisers, the model has been on a bidding process. So when you want to advertise on Google, when you want to advertise on Facebook, Yahoo, or any one of the other search engines, or even be put up into a display network, which means your ad gets sent out to a multitude of sites that are similar to or thematically similar to your product or service, everything is done on a bidding basis. So what that means is that you put in, when you create the ad, the amount of money that you're looking to, or the most amount of money that you're looking to spend on somebody either seeing that ad or clicking on that ad. So CPM is representative cost per 1,000 impressions. CPC is the cost to have one person click on your ad. There's benefits and disadvantages to both of these. CPC is performance-based, so a lot of people prefer CPC if they're looking to get a specific action out of their audience. But there's also a fair amount of businesses that use CPM advertising, which means you just pay for the number of people that see your ad because they're just looking to build presence and not necessarily looking to specifically get an action from the consumer on the site. So a classic example of this might be a business that doesn't do e-commerce, a business that has a web presence and is looking to drive traffic from online into going into their stores. So the goal there is to just give them information and just raise awareness about the brand itself online. Whereas CPC, you would be most interested in only paying for people that click through to your website. And that conversion rate, the ad conversion rate, also called the click-through rate, is the number of people who see the ad versus the number who click through to the site itself. So AdWords is the primary way Google makes money, and actually AdWords for video is coming up as one of the secondary ways in which they make most of their money. Advertisers bid on how much they would like to pay for a click or for 1,000 impressions. Overall, there's a low conversion rate within AdWords, but the trade-off there is there's a very high number of impressions. Google is constantly at either the first or second position in terms of the most visited websites. So you can bet pretty well, and I'm going to show you in a second once we go into some of the analysis tools, that you're going to get a lot of people to see the ads depending on how you're positioning it and what keywords you're targeting it to. But again, conversion rate is relatively low. So those ads that I'm referring to here are those ads that show up on the side of the page when you enter a Google search. and only a smaller portion of people click on those. And in terms of the actual visibility of the ad on Google search, it's not very personal. It's very standardized. So if I see if I could pull up an example of a typical Google ad here. So these ads on the side of the page here are any one of the Google AdWords. So for instance, Zulily, this looks like a women's shoe brand, paid the most out of all of these advertisers here to have their ad positioned first. It's not very personalized. Again, it's only free text plus the URL plus 2 lines of information about what they want to tell to their target audience. So you don't get much of a personal connection by just seeing the impression, but you do get a lot of people to at least see your ad. All right, so one thing that you can do with your clients that's on the more technical end is to actually understand whether AdWords would be a viable solution for them. So I'm going to start over here and go into the keyword planner for AdWords. So anyone who has a Google account can easily set up an AdWords account. Anyone who doesn't have a Google account can easily create one and for free have an AdWords account. You don't need to pay anything to have a Google AdWords account. You only pay when you actually have a campaign running. But by creating the account, you can actually look and see what keywords have what traffic, how competitive those keywords are, and help to understand whether a campaign would be good for the business or not. And I think that's an important thing for business owners to look at, because they say, hey, there's a lot of people online. I want to reach out to the audience of people on the internet, and maybe I can get some business out of that. Well, the truth is that you want to carefully gauge how effective your website is. And there's actually a formula that I can show to you guys in a couple slides to determine whether it will make sense financially to have an AdWords campaign or any other search engine campaign running. So let's say you want to do online e-commerce for flowers. So you know what keywords people are searching for. Maybe florist, maybe flower shop, flowers on sale, wedding flowers. You know what keywords that you have an idea that people are searching for. But this tool within AdWords called the Keyword Planner can help you find more keywords that can better represent your product or service to the target audience. What they've done is they've collected data on campaigns that existed over the past 10 years, 15 years, however long they've been running their ads in association with their search engine, and have found correlations between one keyword and the next. So for instance, somebody including the keyword flowers in their AdWords campaign might also include the keyword wedding gifts, or might also include the keyword wedding flowers or florist or cheap flowers. They've done the math on these and put together bunches of keywords. So by that virtue, you can enter flowers or flower or wedding flowers and target it. So let's say we're going to run this campaign in Syracuse, New York. We want to focus in on the target audience there. If you're an e-commerce business, maybe it would make more sense to run the campaign nationwide, but for argument's sake, we'll look at just this location. And you can choose when the campaign is going to run. You can also choose which keywords to not associate with your campaign. So when you enter this basic information, it gives you ideas of keywords to use in addition to the ones that you've entered here. So you run this analysis, and you can output an Excel spreadsheet of all the keywords that it recommends. So here are some of the base keywords that we just entered, and then there are roughly 800 other keywords that it recommends for you to take a look at that are associated with people who use flowers for their campaign. So some of these you're going to need to go through and just eliminate. For instance, flowers for Algernon has nothing to do with actually selling flowers. So next step after setting this up and entering that query into the keyword planner with your clients, the next step is to open up this output of all the keywords, go through and eliminate the ones that are not associated with the product or service, and then you can actually get into some opportunity discovery. So common sense would say that keywords in which more people are searching online in Google are more competitive. Why? Because advertisers know that more people are searching for this particular keyword, and thus the competition for that bid drives up the cost. But that's not always the case. As you can see right here, I've sorted the keywords by the number of people searching for that keyword in that area, and the competition is not totally directly correlated with that. There are a few keywords that don't fall along that line. So for instance, one of the higher search terms was roses. So on the spectrum of all the keywords here, roses had more searches in that month. However, the competition value, which is an index figure, 1 being the most competitive keyword and 0 being not competitive at all, or blank being not competitive at all, or nobody's advertising on that keyword right now, roses is on the lower end of the spectrum. It's in the 23rd percentile, as opposed to the word flowers itself is in the 94th percentile. So this would be a good keyword to choose from. You know, you'd have to vet that against what your business actually does, but roses might be a good opportunity for your business because this keyword has a relatively higher number of searches per month and a relatively lower competition for that keyword. So you have an opportunity to bid on this keyword at a lower price and reach a very larger audience. So you go through with the clients. First, you pick out the keywords that have nothing to do with their business, and then maybe you sort and identify the keywords that have this type of opportunity. Once you get that information, you can select these keywords and then analyze what sort of traffic and what sort of bid you should set up for these keywords if you were to develop a campaign. So again, going back to the keyword planner here, you click on Get Traffic Forecast. You enter those keywords that we just narrowed down, and I just selected all of them just for argument's sake and keep the ball rolling here, and get forecasts. And it produces a curve. It produces a curve representing the relationship between the number of clicks that you'll get versus the bid that you put in for those clicks. So remember, we're bidding on how much we're willing to pay for someone to actually click on our ad on the Google search page, and that determines the rank on the page. So obviously, the less you bid, the less clicks you'll get on your ad. But at a certain point, you'll notice here that at a certain point, it doesn't matter how high you bid. You continue to bid $7, $8, $9, $10 per click. You're still getting roughly 28, 30 clicks, and it doesn't really go up much higher than that. And that's because at a certain point, you've bid so high that you're always winning that auction on space on the Google search page. You're always winning that first position. So really, the goal is to pick what that maximum cost per click is, or the minimum cost per click in which you always win that campaign, that auction on the search, and not have to pay any more than that, because it's not really worth it. If you pay $7 or $7.50 a click, you get 28.76 clicks per day on average. And if you bid $20 a click, you get 3 more per day. Now, is it really worth an additional $12, $13 a day or per click just to get that many more clicks, 3 more clicks? No, it's not. The goal is to target your cost per click, that bid that you're going to put out there, to be that minimum amount necessary for you to get the maximum number of clicks. And that's somewhere in here. So we can eyeball it and select this point, and it'll update statistics on how many clicks you'll get per day. We also need to enter a daily budget. In Google AdWords, you can specify that I don't want to spend more than $10, $50, $100 a day on advertising, because for some of the more trafficked keywords, this can really get out of control. You could spend up to $50,000 a day if it's something like cancer treatments on a nationwide basis. So you set a cap for how much you want to spend per day. So let's say this business wants to spend no more than $50 a day. Now, with this combination of bid, which we just selected before, and daily budget, it'll give you an estimate of the number of clicks you get per day at that bid and with that daily budget. So here, for this group of keywords that we selected before and went through in the process on this spreadsheet, and then entered into this keyword planner, with a $50 a day budget, there will be about 14.65 clicks a day, click-through rate of 7.4%, so Basically, out of the number of people that see the ad, 7.4% will click through to the website, and the average cost per click will be $3.41. So again, we're setting that cap of $7.30 for bidding on these clicks, and the bid that's actually going through to win this auction is $3.41 on average across all of these keywords. So the next question, of course, you want to ask yourself is it actually worth it to do a Google AdWords campaign? For here, we see, great, we're getting 14.65 clicks a day through to the website. But that's not always the case, and I'm going to go through an example in a few slides on how to actually determine whether the campaign's worth it for you. So the elements of a Google AdWords campaign, again, is the ad itself. So it's a combination of 3 lines, the header, 2 kind of descriptive lines that you want to put into the ad, a link, and the destination URL of the ad, so your website. Keywords, so what keywords you're targeting that ad to, words or phrases you're associating with the ad when somebody searches in Google, and targeting, the geographic location, the device, the network to display the ads, the time of the day. So device would be which device is delivered on. You can set up within Google AdWords to say that we only want to show this ad to people who are entering Google searches on their iPhone, or people who are entering information on their tablet, for instance. Or maybe this is only for Android users, who knows. The network to display the ads. So in addition to showing up on your website, they also display your ads on other websites out there that carry Google AdWords on their page. So there are website owners that have Google Ads called AdSense on the side of their page, delivered by Google. So when you set up for an AdWords campaign, it'll display this information to these other sites, and you could choose what types of sites these ads are delivered on. And finally, time of day. So would it make sense for your ad to show up at 3 o'clock in the morning? Maybe if you're Taco Bell or McDonald's and somebody's drunk and they want to have junk food after that, then yeah, that's a perfect time to show up there. But on the other hand, if you have a business that most of your users are not going to do any searches during that time of day, then maybe it would make more sense to only show your ads during the daytime hours. So Facebook advertising. Difference between Facebook advertising and Google advertising, meaning Google AdWords, is of course the degree of targeting. People self-identify lots of personal information on Facebook. And also through Facebook's cookies and their relationships with other sites, they're able to aggregate a lot of behavioral information about individuals. So the benefit is targeting. So you look at Google AdWords versus Facebook advertising. Google AdWords, you can reach a very, very big audience, albeit you can't narrow it down as much as Facebook. So Facebook, you can narrow it down to the right 100 or to the right 5,000 people out there in the world that maybe have an interest in cats and also have an interest in buying homes in the Phoenix area. You can do something like that, whereas with Google AdWords, you wouldn't be able to get that degree of targeting. So with Facebook advertisements, again, it's the same kind of open bid on cost per click, but you can also enter these attributes about personality, about behaviors, and about activities that that user does both within Facebook and outside. So the elements of a Facebook campaign, the ad, 3 lines of phrases, a link, and a destination URL. You can also include an image in a Facebook ad. Location, so it could be a physical location or a radius around a location where you would like your ad to show up for visitors. So case in point, somebody goes on their iPhone onto their Facebook app and starts scrolling through the newsfeed page, and they are located within 20 miles of Albany, New York. You can set it up so the ad is delivered to that group of people. Demographics, so age, gender, relationship status, and occupation. You can target it to say people who only work in consulting or people who also work in the restaurant industry, for instance. Somebody who's in a relationship, only men, only women. Interests, so based upon what people say within their posts, within their comments, and also on their actual public profile within Facebook, you can target it to those keywords. And then finally, behaviors. So for instance, let's say somebody goes to Amazon.com and buys a handbag. Facebook actually tracks that outside of Facebook, you went to Amazon.com and bought this product, and then advertisers within Facebook can identify and target just those people and deliver ads to them. So that's why if you've ever bought something online, you'll see, very often you'll see as you go into your Facebook account, an ad for another product like that, or perhaps from the same retailer or online retailer. It's kind of just a screenshot of some of the criteria you can use in setting up your ad campaign within Facebook. So, for instance, this looks like some sort of women's accessories criteria that this advertiser was selecting. On here, you can select what demographics you'd like to target in. So, life events, politics, who they're, whether they have parents present or whether their parents are identified on Facebook. In behaviors, what they bought, when they bought it, and locations, where the physical location or radius around the location you're looking to target. AdWords for video has been a shining star for Google because in the last 5 years they've effectively taken YouTube, which is a domain that they've held for much longer, and turned it into a massive profit-making machine. So the great thing about video ads is, of course, there's a higher level of engagement. So higher conversion rate for people that see these ads. So combining what we've known that's worked so well for years with television ads, in that you can convey the most content to people through a video, with the web, which on the web you can target specific people, have made AdWords for video a really effective tool. So for instance, you can deliver an ad to someone based upon the video that they're watching or other demographical information based upon their search habits in the past on Google. And they've developed 2 ways in which you can deliver an ad. In-stream ads, which means that either right before the video starts you have to watch an ad all the way through, or TrueView, which is an option that they delivered a year and a half ago, which is even better. You only pay for someone watching an ad up to at least up to 30 seconds or to the end of the video. So you often see ads on YouTube where there's an option you can click and say, I want to skip this ad. In that case, if the user skips the ad, the advertiser doesn't have to pay for the fact that that user skipped to the next ad or to the video that they're looking for. So that's really helpful because you know that you're really paying for people that watched a good portion of or most of the ad that you're putting out there, and those people are genuinely interested in your product or service. And they garner a high fee for that. Average CPM for online video is about $24.60. So per 1,000 views, $24.60 is spent by the advertiser. And that's in contrast to AdWords itself, which is much lower, on the order of half of that. So Google Analytics, another tool for analyzing your presence. So again, we're moving away from ways to advertise online into ways to understand how your business interacts with its audience. So Google Analytics, up to 55% of the top 10,000 websites on the internet use Google Analytics. So for this discussion, I'll only talk about Google Analytics. There are other options available online, but Google Analytics has the user interface that's easy for a small business owner to implement, and combines that with reporting that is necessary for even the largest of businesses. Really, the risks associated with using Google Analytics is the fact that it tracks inter-site activity. So you need to weigh this as a business owner on what pages do you want to install Google Analytics, because you may or may not want Google to know whether your user has arrived on a certain page or has not. It might be like the home page, for instance. You need to weigh that and the risks associated with them tracking the interpage movements of your user and them having that data. So a few of the tools, the core functionality within Google Analytics is behavior. So what people do within their site, within your site after they've arrived. Acquisition, so that's how people arrive to your site, where they came from before they arrived at your site, what keywords they used to maybe search in Google, Yahoo, etc. To find your website. Behavior, which is, e-commerce, which is what they're doing, whether they're buying something on the site. And lastly but not least, what content is most effective on the website itself. So some of the views that you can get out of Google Analytics are the dashboards. So this is the dashboard right here for acquisition. It shows you on the bottom what resources people use to arrive on the site. So direct means that somebody entered the URL and came directly to your page. Referral means that somebody was on another site and then saw a link for your website and went to your website by clicking on that link. And organic search is by somebody going to a search engine and finding your site. This tool within Google Analytics is the customer flow, or the behavior flow within the site. So it's a visualization tool. There's other tools that have a dashboard for behaviors, but this tool essentially allows you to follow the track of, say, people who arrived at this particular page. So you can even isolate not only all the ways in which people came through to the site, but specific channels. So maybe you want to look at just the number of people who landed on this page, came through this page before that, and then these two pages before that. That might be relevant to see what the drop-off rate is. So this red bar right here indicates the number of people or relative percentage of people who, after arriving on this page, left the site. And that's important in understanding how qualified the content of the site is. So that question I was asking before about whether or not online marketing, say Google AdWords or Facebook ads, is effective for the business. So the business owner might say, yeah, I can get lots of clicks to my site, and thus I'm going to get lots more sales for my business. But that's not always the case, and really the primary reason behind that is because people fail to recognize that there are two conversion rates for the business. So forgive my drawing skills here, but the two conversion rates, let's say for argument's sake, the same florist has developed this advertising campaign. So they've targeted the keywords that they want to have their ads show up on, and they've launched their campaign. So the web audience sees the ad for this florist and clicks on the ad. They land on the website, the florist's website. They browse the website, and they make a purchase in a perfect world. But in the real world, the reality is that first and foremost, people see the ad and they don't click on it. So there's a certain percentage of people that just see the ad and continue moving through the search engine. And then, of course, out of the number of people that land on the page, there is a certain percentage that land on the page and don't buy anything. In fact, it's a very large percentage most of the time. So because there's two conversion rates, the conversion rate of number of people who see the ad to number of people that click on the ad and land on the website, and number of people who land on the website and number of people who make the sale, the net effect is actually a much lower percentage of the total audience, the total number of impressions you get actually buy something. So those two conversion rates are the click-through rate, which we mentioned before, and your own website's e-commerce conversion rate, which once you're up and running and selling online, you can actually pull off of your Google Analytics account. So let's look at some facts about this particular business's campaign. So they developed this e-commerce campaign that has about 30,000 impressions. So basically, every day, every week, every month, whatever frequency we're looking at here, it doesn't matter for the purpose of this example. They get 30,000 impressions. The click-through rate on that campaign is 0.8%. So out of those 30,000 people that see the ad per day, 0.8% click through to the website. On the website itself, its e-commerce conversion rate is 2%. So out of the people that land on the site, 2% actually buy something, or 1 out of every 50 people buy something. Now, to put this in context, this is relatively above the average for e-commerce sites, but we'll use this for this example. Based upon the Google Analytics account, the retailer is able to determine that the average purchase is $95, and the average cost of goods is $20, based upon their own accounting tools. So now let's do the analysis and see whether it's actually worth it to have this e-commerce or this Google AdWords campaign. So the impression to sales ratio basically takes this click-through rate and multiplies it by the web e-commerce conversion rate, because you have to factor in the fact that both of those conversion rates, that somebody will land on the site and then they may or may not actually make a purchase. So that 0.8% times 0.2% is 0.016%. So in other words, out of every 10,000 people that see the ad, 1.6 turn into new sales. We can then break down that average purchase of $95 to the average revenue per visit. So if we know that 2% of people, on average, that arrive on the site make a purchase, and that purchase on average is $95, $95 divided by 50, or 2% is 1 out of 50, the revenue per visit is $1.90. You can do the same routine with cost per visit. So 2% of visitors actually make a purchase. That average cost of that purchase is $20. So the cost per visit, or COGS per visit, is 40 cents. So that contribution margin per visit is $1.50. You can take that figure and compare it to the cost per click. So we now know that for the AdWords campaign, the maximum that you want to bid on a cost per click is $1.50. Because if you bid more than $1.50, you're essentially spending more money for a visitor to your site than the actual amount of money that that visitor to your site is bringing in. So at that point, you need to say, hey, based upon the market for clicks, because when you go into the Google AdWords account, you can see what the average cost per click is going for a particular keyword, as we did before. Based upon that average, is it actually worth it for me to do a Google AdWords campaign? Based upon what my customers are spending, how effective my conversion rate is. If the average cost per click needed to get some real conversion to your site is higher than $1.50, it's probably not worth it. Or you might want to look at the lifetime value of a customer, which is a little bit more abstract at this point. The other alternative is to boost that actual e-commerce conversion rate on your site. Now, what does it take to do that? That depends. That depends on how effectively you're displaying content on your site. It could be, the assortment of products that you have on site. This turns into more of a marketing question and a more of branding question and site layout question. But these are, at least two pieces of advice you can give to your clients. So when you go into web development, actually building out the site, there you have three options, as in everything else in life. You could do it yourself, you could hire somebody, or you can do a mix of both. So any entrepreneur can spend the time, can spend months, years learning how to do basic coding or basic HTML, basic PHP, learn enough, and build their own website. The disadvantages of doing that is, of course, long lead time, and is it actually worth your time to do something like that? For someone who is a general contractor, is it worth their time to learn HTML? Probably not. You could hire a freelance developer. Potential issues with that are confidentiality. If you've developed this innovative process or technique, you always run the risk of them taking this, particularly if they're outside of the United States. And a communication gap. And I'm not just talking about language here. So communication gap could be that you asked them to do something and they didn't understand that you wanted to output this specific function or have your site look in a specific way. And as a result, they build something for you that isn't the way that you want it to look. And then hybrid. So hybrid is, building a portion of the site yourself, also using some help from a developer, and also maybe taking some of these online libraries that exist right now that facilitate the development of site without having to get into heavy coding. So key elements that you want to look into. What's really become the most important element just in the last few years has been responsiveness. So that's how your website or your app looks, particularly for websites, looks in a multitude of devices and browsers. Adaptability, ease of which the site can be changed. So modular design, which means that building each kind of component of the site separately fosters this and makes this a lot easier. And then security, so privacy of user and company information as it's being broadcasted over the internet. So for someone who does want to do it themselves, you can suggest a few tools to them. First and foremost is W3 Schools. They have a very wide breadth of languages that they talk about and curated, professionally built content on how to use different programming languages. For users that have a specific question that they'd like to ask or perhaps find an answer to a question that other people have, they can go to Stack Overflow, which is a central repository of questions on coding and development. Popular languages that people will most likely approach you with: PHP, Ruby on Rails, Node.js, and I put a strike through on ASP.NET really because it's out there, but it's really becoming one of the less popular languages for web development. And then for mobile applications, Objective-C, Swift, which was recently released for the iOS, iPhone, Java for Android, and Apache Cordova, and I'll go into this with the hybrid forms of web development. Apache Cordova is a suite of tools that allow you to build an app by building it the same way you would build a website, and then using Apache Cordova to have that translated into both an iOS app as well as an Android or Java app. So hiring developers, two resources I'd recommend for you to speak to clients about are Elance and Odesk. These have large amounts of developers and also large numbers of projects completed. The benefits of using these sites are that they will arbitrate. So let's say you ask a developer to build you something and it isn't what you asked for. They will arbitrate that, either request that they specifically complete the work for you, or alternatively withhold the money from them. And they'll also help you set up the documents needed to do this. So for instance, if the developer is within the United States, they'll actually produce the W-9 for them to be an independent contractor for you. They'll actually help you communicate documentation over to the developer themselves. The two actually are one company. They recently merged. Elance has a broader range of the skill sets, so you can find graphic designers on there, maybe web front-end developers there, and also strict coders on that site. And Odesk, Odesk is actually the next generation of a site that used to be called Rent-A-Coder, and that's more focused on developers themselves. It has the most number of workers. So what you need to be concerned about on these sites is the language gap. So it kind of depends who you're working with. I would recommend that you go, one way to actually find the developer on these sites is to actually look up, say, the skill set that you're looking for. So someone to build a PHP site. So as you can see on the left here, I entered the keyword in the developer search for PHP. Look through the developers that are top rated for that skill set, and then go to their portfolio pages. So for instance, on the right here, I pulled up this individual's page. Look at their portfolio pages, and what I think you should look for is the proficiency in the English language. So people who are located in a different country might be able to code very well, but they might not be able to take the content that you've developed or take contents that they need to bridge the gap between and effectively communicate it over your site. So again, vet the English proficiency of the developer. Pay close attention to the KPIs of your engagement with this developer. If you put together unreasonable KPIs, or alternatively KPIs that are a little bit too vague, you probably won't get what you want. So to help kind of ensure that you're getting the exact product that you want, there's two things you can do. One is to wireframe all the pages, and these are two resources to build wireframes. So wireframes are just basic image mock-ups of how you'd like each of the pages to work. So it just gives you kind of shapes that look like a website to help put together something to deliver to the developer and say, yeah, this is what I kind of want it to look like. You can make some of your own discretion on what colors should go into here, or what sort of gradients should be applied to this particular part of the page. But for the most part, this is a design that I want. So putting together wireframes helps. And then secondarily, putting together a full set of written specifications. So this can be as complex or as simple as the entrepreneur wants, but I would recommend they put them together for a site that has a good degree of detail on it. So basically, it's tying together all those pages, saying this page and what happens with the data on this page, what sort of processing they'd like to happen with the data. So for instance, let's say somebody arrives on the register page of a website. You want to tell the developer what information needs to be collected, where that information is going to be kept, how they'd like to validate that information, and what sort of logic happens with that information. So in addition to building that mock-up, you can also build kind of a tree diagram that shows how information flows through the site, and ask the client specific questions to help them build their design specs. What data should be collected? What logic goes into the data being collected? In other words, how is it used elsewhere? What logic goes into the flow of pages on the site? And also what specific software and hardware that entrepreneur would like to use in building out their site or their app. So kind of just a screenshot of Go Mockingbird. This is the free option out of the two that I mentioned on the previous page. And finally, the hybrid model. So the hybrid model basically involves using open source libraries in combination with having developers finish the job for you. So a few to recommend here are Bootstrap, Zerb Foundation, FontAwesome, and jQuery. So this still requires the entrepreneur get somewhat involved in actually developing the site. But what these libraries are they're sets of tools to make it easier to add style to the page and add functions to the page, which, without having to write long, extensive bodies of code just to get what they want. These are basically predefined. So they're still developing their own site, but this basically makes it easier for them to build the functions that they like into that site. Any questions?
Questions, anybody? I'm not seeing any come in. Of course, you can always email Alec if you want after the webinar. So we will go ahead and end. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Alec, thank you so much. That was a great job. And again, this was recorded and will be in WebMQS. So this ends our webinar for today. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.